Welcome back to Quintessence Virtual Retreat, Spiritual Journey. I'm so pleased to be joined today with Ilan Stephani. She is a shapeshifter and practices somatic mysticism. And I'm just so thankful you can join our discussion today around how, really claiming and connecting to our spiritual essence can transform and uplift our lives. And I would love to start this session together with just taking some full body breaths and just really grounding in, getting centered. I'd just like to take this moment and invite our participants to set their own personal intention for our time together. This way, you're able to really kind of extract these nuggets of wisdom that apply to your own personal life and where you're at, and feel like it's a more direct conversation with you. And I also want to thank you all for taking this time and really dedicating yourself to claiming your spiritual essence and seeing your life as a spiritual journey. And when we step into this perspective of our life, often we inspire people around us to do the same. And this is what creates a ripple effect through our friends and our family and really creates a global awakening. And so, thank you. And with that, Ilan, would you share with us a bit about your work, please?
You already said it. I think this kind of we long so much for our essence, for our truth, and then we create ripple effects. I'm not doing anything else than anybody else. It's just we are like walking energetic signatures, and we are creating ripple effects in the downside or the upside direction. Open to you. I'm not the one saying it happens into this or that direction, but my work unfolded as for years as the most precise reflection of how can I use words and contact and togetherness and still be true with myself. And nowadays, I'm so blessed to also know that in friendships and in partnerships, etc., like this moment, I do not have to leave my essence in order to be intimate with the world around. But when I grew up, I was almost an autistic child, even though nobody diagnosed or would have diagnosed me that way. I was really so shut down around, wow, I was born with this spiritual essence that all of us are born with. And to some extent, I could say I do not like the word spiritual in a way of it's somewhere over there. It's just we are born and we say fully yes with every cell to being alive. We say yes to every aspect of this adventure. We are not saying, I don't want the pain, I only want the pleasure. We say yes. This is how we are born. And then we shrink and shrink and shrink. And that is what we call maturing, what we call becoming normal, what we call conditioning or culture in school, etc., etc. And then I couldn't stand my longing anymore. And I looked for words and settings where I could express how much I suffer from numbness. And I started with talking therapy, and after a while got into body therapy and body work. And that's the love of my life. I think that's why I say somatic mysticism. It is mysticism is not after death or over there. And it's not for the privileged ones. It's not a highlight and it's not at the weekends. It's not expensive. It is the bone in your foot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hair. It's your ass. It's somatic. Like mysticism, the wonder and awe of being alive is something so sober, so normal, 24/7. That is what we are wired by and wired for. So my work is a lot. I mean, I could say I teach mostly in groups. I could say it's kind of a hard training. People said it's an embodiment training for warriors. But I think what culture has put on us in terms of numbness is also tough. That's a warrior school. And
Yeah.
making that, like unlearning that, yes, it sounds a little bit like work. Yes, it takes a little bit of sweat and tears and desperation, but it's so much less desperation than staying numb until we survived our life. So that is, my work is, it's like a radical kiss of love and force for wake up. We are living right now, right here, and we are amazing.
Yeah. And so would you say that the sensation, is it around awakening sensation and around awakening the connection to sensation? Yeah.
Yes, mainly that. As
Mhm.
when we look at psychology of babies, it's so interesting that they learn when they grow up how to orient themselves in emotions and feelings. But they do only learn that when they have been provided a safe space underneath of sensing their own sensations, receiving enough touch that is just safe and nurturing and doesn't want something and doesn't violate their boundaries. And only if a child received this amount of safe sensation, an ocean of sensation, as the very foundation of their existence, then on top of that, the nervous system develops the capacity for being oriented during emotions and feelings. And only if that is established as well, we develop the capacity of orient in language and words. So I think a tragic thing is when we do not tune into our sensations, our spirituality is kind of blah blah dissociation. And even that is wonderful, but then it can create all those power dynamics that we see, for example, in the spiritual scene happening. And I think that's tragic because we open for something sacred and then we get trapped in human power games, maybe. So that's just my wish, that our spiritual essence is something up there and down there, down there.
Yeah. Okay. So there is so much to unpack in what you just said. That is just so wonderful because I also have a love of human development. I think that human development is extraordinarily fascinating. And I see, like, I think it's fascinating how we desire for our children to develop faster. And when we do this, we're actually, I believe, stunting them for life in proper development. Like, and I don't know exactly the psychologist or sociologist, but there's something very necessary in a baby learning to crawl before they walk because of how that orientates their brain, right? Like you need that cross crawl thing so that then when you walk, you have that opposite side of the brain. And I'm using that as just a very, simple um simple example. But what I think you're saying is like the next level of that, which is it sounds like we actually need these neurons, these sensory neurons to be activated, to give our brain the information, right? Because every time we're having that nurturing, loving, soft touch, right? That's safe, that's appropriate. It's giving our brain like an incredible amount of information, right? Like information and stimulation, right? So it's actually growing our brain probably in those young years. And then, like you said, it's actually laying the foundation. If I understood you correctly, it's laying the foundation then to actually be able to know their emotional state, so to speak, and be able to then express it. Is that correct?
And really experiencing my emotional landscape as a source of energy. And so many experience their own emotions as a source of exhaustion and confusion. And that is, I think, I mean,
Yes.
we talk about these things like, oh, poor child, it has been traumatized. But to be honest, all of us are. And I do not play around with the word trauma lightly, quite the opposite. But it is a mass phenomenon. Today, cultural trauma, developmental trauma is something that is the basic ingredient of the Western civilized culture matrix. That's just it. No capitalism, no war, nothing would function without people who have been already developmentally traumatized as babies, period. So there is something of us being confused in the higher levels of emotions, emotional maturity, and mental maturity and independence from the concepts and expectations of others that can only happen by us suffering from a constant lack of safe touch and a natural respect for our own boundaries. Some of us have been touched in such
Yeah.
wrong ways. So all of these twists in the foundation, they are something that we do not feel because we numb out. But when they make us numb out, they have even more power over us. It's like I can dissociate until I say, oh, today I get along. But I mean, I only get along because I didn't get along. That's the story, that's the narrative of my escape.
Yeah, and I think so. In my own life, I've been working with this because in my upbringing, I was only really allowed positive emotions in the family, right? Or I was a problem for them. I was inconveniencing them, and so now I have a daughter who's 4. And I have, before having her, I have really worked to reintegrate my emotions. So I've even gone to a place where if I need to, I will cry in public, right? Because if I need to, that is where I'm at. And I'm not going to um allow people who are feeling uncomfortable to make me suppress my emotions, right? It doesn't feel natural. It feels natural, like if you are in a, because a lot of times when I have cried in a public situation, right, it's because I need to release the emotion so that then I can have my idea of how I need to solve the problem, or like what needs to come next, right? And I know inside of me, like, okay, I need to release this so that I can continue being present, like you're saying, right? So I don't numb out.
Yeah.
And obviously, because I'm, fairly functional person, I'm not like walking around crying and throwing fits everywhere or something. It's not about that, but it's like in those critical moments when you're like, no, this is the appropriate thing, but we are so conditioned to not show emotion publicly, right? And so sadness is one of those emotions, right? And then the other one would be anger,
Mhm.
right? And also, I have learned, especially as a woman, how in America at least, like we are really not supposed to show our anger, not privately or publicly.
Mhm.
There's really no appropriate place, and
Just don't be angry. Yeah.
we're actually not even supposed to have it. Like there's something wrong with us if we even have that emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because I grew up in this, um, anyway, my father was very emotionally manipulative. He was a very emotionally manipulative person. And so he is the kind of person who will like push you, push you, push you, you know what I mean? Until your breaking point. And he'll do it over hours, like very intelligent, you know what I mean? And so you end up thinking, right now, I think we call it gaslighting kind of, but like you end up thinking, what's wrong with me that I'm like losing it, right? And I bring this up because I had so much shame around feeling anger at
Mm.
all.
Yeah.
But and so I want to talk to you about this because I really think in our spiritual journey, claiming all our full emotional capacity is necessary to complete empowerment, to having a complete human experience.
Yeah.
And when we only live in the happy, calm, the two acceptable ranges, I believe we're actually like closing out a lot of
Mhm.
our primal power and our primal like attunement to what our boundaries are, right?
And
So
it's so interesting. Yeah, I'm sorry.
yeah, go on, please.
No, it's so interesting that I can relate so well to your upbringing. Like the matrix of my culture in Germany is so much the same or so similar. And yes, either happy or calm. And know what? If somebody tells you or conditions you to suppress your anger, you have no chance to be truly happy and no chance to be truly calm. We call it suppression. We call it dissociation. We call it internal collapse and self-hatred that makes you look, even for yourself, happy and calm. But happy and calm is a disaster inside. And I agree so much. Like, I want spirituality 24/7 for all of us everywhere. And there is only one force on earth designed for incarnating with spiritual power on earth. And that is rage. It's rage. And just a super brief history of rage. The mammal inside has a traumatic situation in front and it goes into freeze or collapse. We know that, right? Freeze, danger. The moment the danger is over or the moment that we can shift something of the situation, what do? We either do fight or flight. Easy. Fight or flight. Freeze, fight or flight. Flight needs us in the power of fear, because then we are fast enough. Fight needs us in the power of rage, because then we fight for our dignity, our values, our existence, and our self-love. So when I run away, I might save my life, but I leave my territory, I leave my daughters behind, and they might get killed. I just run for my naked life. The only version that we have in a collectively traumatized species like mankind nowadays, in order to not live a life that basically is defined as survival and freeze. The only version that is left is us stepping into the power of rage. Because rage is, you violated my boundaries and I will make you go back again. And if you don't do so, I will kill you because I want, because I can, and because you violated me. And you are putting danger onto my family. And that's not fucking okay. So what I'm saying in that is only rage fights for an environment, a territory that is composed by things that are better than just survival. That is more than just a naked existence, not starving and having too much pain at once. It's an existence that is defined by, I'm loved by existence, and I'm perfect, and so are you. Let's create something magic together, because we share the same precious lifetime on Earth. There is something where when people talk about rage, they do not talk about rage, they talk about the symptoms of suppressed rage. If we would tap into the power of rage, we would tap overnight into the power of peace for everybody, even peace between the sexes. And all the violence and all the abuse and all the violations and all the war and all the bombs are symptoms of us fighting against the power of rage. And I want to talk for a moment, just let's say, because you brought up the upbringing of you as a little girl, the story of women, and also then the story of men, but let's stay for a moment with the story of women. We do not get rid of the power of rage, but we put it against us. Female self-hatred is one of the core ingredients for the whole fashion and makeup, etc., 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 and beauty industry. So I just want to make very clear, this insanity going on, creating so much suffering, needs us hating ourselves. If we want to stop hate ourselves, we have to reclaim our boundaries. And it's not the job from the outer world to do that and to say, whoa, sorry. It's our job to say sorry or not. But I will show up with what works for me and what doesn't. It needs the tigress inside.
This is so profound for me because in my own personal story, I have come full circle with this. And I'm going to share, even though it's still very ripe for me, because I think there is a collective healing that will happen through the sharing. And so with my daughter, I choose to be very patient with her. And I choose to, the best of my human ability, appropriately escalate my response to her so that she can feel her effects of her behavior on the people around her and choose, sorry for that, and choose to accommodate or not, and let's talk about it. And and then it gets to a point. So as of late, she has been having trouble to put clothes on, and it hasn't been a long thing, but the last 6 weeks, right? And presently my husband is away, and so it's a lot more responsibility for me. And it was becoming an everyday, every morning thing. And it's not something we're going to compromise on. Like, she's going to need to put the clothes on, right? And one morning, it was a combination of a lot of things happened. And I'm being very vulnerable here in my parenting. But one morning, I just, the rage kicked in. And I was just like, we got the clothes on finally. And then it was like the shoes were starting the tantrum. And I was just like, I didn't have the emotional energy to continue to do it every morning. And so I did not scream at her, but I primal screamed in the house. I did not direct it at her, right? I wasn't facing her. But I did it in the house, and I just let us from my belly, right? Because I'm pretty practiced at primal screaming at this point. Right. Yeah. And then, we went back to the bedroom, we talked about it again, we reclaimed ourselves, she was saying, Mama, I'm bad. I said, no, but you're not bad. But sometimes the choices that you're doing make Mama very frustrated and very angry. And and then she said, okay, Mama, and I said, we need to really try to work together, and actually after that moment, now that was about 2 weeks ago, and now it shifted something in her, right? And so now we've been able to do the close. There's still a little bit of something, but it's not like a 20-minute tantrum, right? Now, I had this boundary with my mom where I wasn't really sharing a lot of private things with her because she's not very empathic with me. And so it ends up me feeling unfulfilled and not feeling heard. And so I changed my boundary. Well, I had just had that happen this morning, and I went to my mom's to bring her something, and I shared with her what had happened. And I could feel her judgment, right? But it was like under the surface. And then the next day I said, well, it kind of worked because this morning we were able to work and put the clothes on and it wasn't a whole thing. And she says, well, there's another way, Maggie. You don't have to yell in front of your child. And I said, well, that was a progression, right? So I end up getting quite angry with her because I say, I feel like you're judging me. I feel like you're judging me and my anger, and that doesn't make me feel safe to talk to you, right? At which point she shows up at my door, and this is that was all backstory to this, and she says, Maggie, I'm worried about you and your anger. And I said, I'm worried about you and your lack of anger.
Yeah.
I am worried about you never expressing your anger. And in that moment, I actually said to her, your lack of anger is what allowed you to let your son and your husband abuse me because you didn't use your anger.
Brilliant. Wow.
You turned away, right? She conveniently numbed out.
Yeah.
And so I'm bringing this story up that's still right, but I feel is very pertinent to this conversation, because then what I said was, my anger is my power. Yeah. And what I meant was not I'm using my anger to control and manipulate people. What I meant was my life force is connected to my anger. I cannot differentiate. So this is what I'm wanting to bring. It's like you cannot differentiate. If you suppress your anger, I believe you're also suppressing your life force.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, right? Because it's not conveniently, our life force is not like conveniently just happy and calm. We're not, our creator didn't make us this way.
I mean, when we do not know and embody our anger, we do not fight for our boundaries, / we give them up. And that means we do not have boundaries, and that means we cannot feel safe. Know which animal is the most dangerous animal on earth? An animal that never can find peace anywhere. It feels there is no safety. Nobody is trustworthy. Everybody is an asshole. Everybody will betray me. I hate them all so much. All this war, all those perversions, all this violence, all this horror amongst humans comes from us not having recovered from basic unsafety with each other. As a transgenerational trauma with thousands of sources, we know enough about that. We just have to unwind. And it's brilliant because the last thing that I said was, it's a job of a tigress inside. And it moved me to tears what you share. Thank you so much. It's such a powerful story of a true tigress mother and also a tigress daughter with her instincts full on. Your lack of anger is something that is such a trauma in my life. I did not only learn that men abuse women, I also learned that women are not trustworthy, have no power, no courage, and no love. And I think that is one basic wish that I have for everybody's spiritual journey, that we manage it. You know, we talk so much about the way up through the chakras. Nobody talks
Yes.
about the way down. But it's easy to
Yes.
be in the mindfuck culture in our head, like love and light and God over there. But so often we are not looking for the God over there, but for the father and the mother that we did not have, projecting them onto the outer world and onto spiritual realms. But still, we are those begging babies saying, you can't let me down. I'm your tigress daughter. And the way down is so much more powerful. And in that way, you know it so well yourself, a spiritual journey has cosmic forces behind it. How can it be that this spiritual journey of millions of people nowadays doesn't show up in order to change the world? I do not like the term, but I think we all agree there could be less suffering on earth. And I think all of us agree we would love to contribute something for releasing suffering from the species. And that is what I mean when I say changing the world. So this changing the world is we stop running around, we stop giving up, we embody what we know as truth and essence and spirituality, and we transcend it down chakra by chakra by chakra until it reaches the soles of our feet. And the soles of our feet, when are they active for what we want to show up for? When we fight. And this fight is a fight that is in full contact, in full presence. It doesn't destroy more than needs or wants to be destroyed. It's over when it's over. So we think we fuel the war when we step into the power of anger. The opposite is true. Power is, rage is here to provide the power of peace. And because we constantly think anger is suppressed anger, and not suppressing anger would lead to another catastrophe, because we are constantly so confused, we never get in touch with the gift inside.
Yes. So it was so interesting because in this conversation, you know, and I'm in full rage now, right? Because I've created a boundary with my mom. I've gotten off the phone and she's shown up at my door to confront me with this, right? So then I said, my anger is what gives me fuel to change the world.
Yeah.
So like I'm doing, you know, virtual retreats, but my soul's purpose is actually in a book that I'm coming out with, which is all
Woo!
around, yes, which is
Yay!
all around up leveling our economic system in
Wow.
yeah. And
Wow.
that came from the rage of
Yeah.
suppression from capitalism, right? But if I didn't tune into that rage, it wouldn't propel me to come up with a solution,
Yeah.
right? And I want to just touch on one thing that we talked about previously, and that is one of the other things that came up in this conversation was she said, you need to make the choice to change, to no longer have this anger. And I'm thinking, what, you know, to become unhuman? I said, I don't have a choice. And what I meant in that is, I know through my own healing, if I again suppress my anger and rage, it will turn into self-hatred.
Yeah.
And that's what I experienced when I was young, was being very suicidal because all of that rage got turned inside.
Yeah. And
And
that's
so, yeah. So it's like
I,
once you've gone down that road, you know you can't do it. You cannot survive. It's like, I know I cannot survive. Now, there's something different between having rage and anger and expressing it and doing it in a way that is abusive, or do you know what I mean? So it is a healthy expression of anger and rage where it is nonviolent. It's a nonviolent expression of anger and rage, right? And
Yes. Let me challenge that a little bit. Of
yes.
course, all of our project of embodying rage in order to bring peace and harmony and trust back to our contact. Yes, all of that is a design of nonviolence, but it's also a design that is ready to fight. Like rage, to some extent,
Mhm,
are dangerous. And Maggie,
mhm.
you need to be dangerous. You have a little daughter. You need to be dangerous. When somebody is about attacking your daughter, I want you to be a killer. I want
Yeah,
that. And the
yeah,
great thing is, you can. Since millions
yes.
of years, you can kill. So there is something where I do not want to talk about non-violence too early, because all of us have
Mhm, mhm.
we do not have the choice. I agree so much with you. We do not have the choice between being angry or not. We only have the choice of fighting against our anger until we are so immature that we get overwhelmed by our anger charge, and then we explode to the outer world, blame the others, beat up the child, etc., etc., etc. Destroy the planet just because we cannot contain our energy. Or we have the choice to say, I'm alive. I will be angry over and over again, maybe every day of my life. So I step into the ring. I take on the training box, whatever, boxing gear,
Yeah,
and I'm doing my training for containing that I am dangerous. But when I fully embody that I'm dangerous and that I can be violent, I will not get attacked. And I will not attack because I
yes.
know I can fight, and I know it so well that I do not need to fight. We
It
need to fight with each other
precisely.
all day long. And especially women. I mean, I share so much of my story, obviously, with you without us having shared our biographies. But I was like, no, I'm never angry. Like everybody around was, Ilan, hello, you can be so passive aggressive. I mean, you say you are a victim and you would never harm somebody. You can be so mean. Do you get that? And I was like, who are you talking about? So we do not have the option of deleting
Yes.
anger from this planet. We only have the option of making this force turn into war by fighting against it, wanting to be just a living mindfuck that is, by the way, pretty unhappy, or we have the choice to say, that's the deal. I want to live up. I want to live with every fiber of my body. I want to know every goddess and god, inside and outside. If it costs me containing rage, I'm here. I'm ready. It's like we get everything, but we only get everything. And that's a deal. We have to want that. But it would be
Yeah,
so
I
satisfying. Yeah.
I think that is so pivotal because like when you look at Hindu gods or you look at Hawaiian goddesses, right? Or goddesses, right? We have Kali, we have
Yeah.
Pele. And these are wrathful goddesses, but they're wrathful towards the demons. They're wrathful towards the
Illusions,
yeah,
concepts. Yeah.
yeah,
The ego. They are
yeah,
like Kali is in the blood, is at war for life, but she
yeah,
really knows what needs to go. So there is
yeah.
something, I loved it so much in the beginning of our conversation when you said us connecting to our spiritual essence. And when I then remember how I was on my first, like in my first chapters of those journeys, I was like, I have to focus myself on my spiritual essence and I have to make that way through the hindrances and the blockages. And now it's like, no, I have to unlearn what I have put into the way. I have
Mhm,
to exhale what got into the way. I have
mhm.
to stop stopping myself. It's a surrender, almost like falling backwards into what I am. So there is something very sweet and surrendered, but also very physical or very somatic of us tapping back into our spiritual essence. It's not hopefully praying to the right God or doing the right mantra because with another one it wouldn't work. It's letting go of the experience somatically in our fascia, in our bones, in our muscles, of all those armors, of layers, of believing that the world would be greedy. We show up as if we would be greedy, but the world's design is overabundance with options and with us being good. I think there is such a deep, as you said, shame for our existence because we grow up with a subconscious collective belief system. Humans need to be tamed. If we do not educate them, if we do not say,
Yes.
don't do this, don't do that, then they show up as the dark soul inside. And the truth is, this creates the impression that the soul could be dark. It's all good.
Yes.
There is no exception, no criminal, nobody is bad. But when we study trauma and transgenerational trauma and the somatic shutdown over decades of patriarchal systems, etc., then we understand we show up as if we are bad and we believe that we are bad, which is still something else than us being bad. We are very generous beings, very light beings, very, very warming, loving beings. But when we get traumatized around, don't do that, don't do that, then we end up being so confused about our spiritual essence of being good that we treat us very hard on our spiritual journey back, which is such an unnecessary thing because the spiritual essence is like, sweetie, you're okay. It's okay. And we are like, I have to meditate, I have to do the sun salutation, etc. And it's like,
Only if that's what feels good.
Yeah.
If that's what feels good, you know. I think about this just in wrapping up this amazing discussion, like one of the other things that my mom said to me in that moment was, you know, the reason that your daughter is so angry is because of your anger. And I thought to myself, what a gift I've given her then.
Yeah. It was exactly my response. I was like, you are so right, Mom. My daughter is angry. Woo! I made it. She's a tigress in the wilderness around, and she will fight for herself.
Yeah.
If somebody she attacks her, she will fight. What an awesome, courageous girl.
And it would be one thing if she only expressed anger, I would be concerned, right? But she has such an amazing myriad of emotional expressions in a day. And anger probably is only 5 minutes, 7 minutes of a day is spent in anger, right?
You see, and we come from 5,000 years of war against us, the other ones, and this planet. And you, with such a hard story, managed so much healing in your life that you give birth to a girl that is angry for 5 minutes. And those 5 minutes are worth being a fight. A bloody fight, a violent fight if it needs that. And after 5 minutes and not after 5,000 years, it's over because that is the design of anger. It's such a beautiful story.
Yes. And then there is that feeling of wholeness. Do you know what I'm talking about? When you release the anger and then you feel that peace coming over.
Yes. Under anger as energy, as we said, emotions being a constant source of frequencies of energy. So 5 minutes anger and peace and wholeness. That's it. Maggie, we could have so much fun with each other here on Earth. Ah, humans, I love them. But if I wouldn't love them, I would hate them. I would hate them. Oh, we are suffering for nothing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing up that tigress, right? Bringing up that, because that is part of claiming our spiritual journey here on the planet.
It's claiming, and it's really, we need the tigress energy, not only for suppressing our anger, not only for shouting at others. We also need this warrior, this fierceness, this tigress inside for, I will manage my way back to my anger. It has been forbidden to me for thousands of years. That's even more why I will succeed. I will manage my way back to my anger. And one day my anger will be mine again. And I will be trembling with rage. And I will celebrate and celebrate and celebrate myself.
Aho.
Aho.
Thank you.
A juicy, spiritual, down-to-earth challenge. I am all in.
Yes. So, I mean, I would thank you, but I don't even know where to start, because what rawness, I mean, the rawness of this and the truth that you've spoken, I mean, just illuminates me from the other side of the earth. And I would love, love, love to just like breathe this all into our bodies and send it out as a prayer. Beautiful.
May I have a little suggestion for that?
Please, please, please.
Because right under the organ of love is the organ of anger and rage, which is liver and gallbladder. And also, for example, in traditional Chinese medicine, we know the liver and gallbladder have to be removed from blockages, like they have to be in a juice and flow. And if that rage flows, it opens the heart for love. Even TCM knew for thousands of years, first the rage, and when this job is done, love will naturally follow. Nobody needs to open your heart. Everybody needs to open up the liver and gallbladder, and then the heart unfolds naturally, just because that's its nature. So my suggestion is, when we breathe it in, we first of all, we rub quickly our hands and then place them on liver and gallbladder. I can show it here. Wait a second.
Okay.
Wait, you don't see it because of my clothing. So here, line of my breasts, lower ribs, then here is my liver and gallbladder. So I place my hands there. Woo! I place my hands on my liver and gallbladder, breathing in and out. And Maggie, you might take over. It's your meditation. I was just jumping in if you want.
No, I love this. I love this.
So I will, if you want, keep following my words, breathing in and out 3 times with all the compassion for all the anger inside, welcoming it. Twice more, sounding a little bit like a tigress, waking up again. Vibration in liver and gallbladder. One more time. Showing your teeth, and then softly, as if already loving ourselves, both hands from the liver and gallbladder to your heart. Inhaling. Loving this world full power on means being ready to fight for it. Being ready to be free, to go for ourselves, our truth. It's like if I was to love the world, it takes everything from me, every courage. And I'm all in. Open your eyes. Tiger. Yay!
Okay, so I usually end by saying, may all beings be happy and free. And I'm going to say, may all beings be happy and free and rageful. Yeah. And may our thoughts, words, and actions contribute to the happiness, freedom, and rage of all beings everywhere.
Embodiment, self-dignity, power, courage, everything that is in the package of rage. Let's go for all of that. We deserve it. We deserve the peace that comes with it.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Aho.